The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was drinking coffee at my kitchen table. Robert sat across from me reading the paper, and Lily was upstairs getting ready for work. My phone buzzed, and I saw it was the city planning office. Mrs. Carter, this is Jennifer Walsh from the Urban Development Department. I'm calling about the compensation offer for your property at 247 Oak Street. I straightened in my chair. We'd been waiting months for this. Yes, go ahead. The final assessment has been completed. The offer is $650,000. You have 30 days to accept or negotiate. I thanked her, ended the call and set the phone down carefully. Robert looked up from his newspaper. Well? $650. He whistled low. That's more than we thought. Lily came down the stairs, her heels clicking on the hardwood. Was that the city? They made the offer, $650,000. My daughter smiled, that knowing smile she gets when she sees 10 steps ahead. That's excellent, Mom. Are you going to tell Aunt Sandra? I sipped my coffee. I don't have to. She'll know within the hour. Robert chuckled. That woman has radar for money. He wasn't wrong. My phone rang again 20 minutes later. Sandra's name flashed on the screen, and I let it ring 3 times before answering. Helen, I just heard the most incredible news. Her voice was shrill with excitement. Is it true? Did you get an offer? News travels fast. $650,000. Can you believe it? That tiny little house? I felt the familiar tightness in my chest. Tiny little house. She'd been calling it that for 15 years. Ever since the day we'd divided our parents' estate. I'd taken this house, the smaller one, and she'd insisted on the larger property across town. At the time, she'd gloated about getting the better deal. It's a fair offer, I said evenly. Fair. It's amazing. Helen, we need to talk. Can Greg and I come over this afternoon? What's this about, Sandra? Oh, just family matters. Nothing to discuss over the phone. How about 3 o'clock? I agreed, though every instinct told me to brace myself. After I hung up, Lily came back into the kitchen with her purse. Let me guess. Aunt Sandra wants to visit. 3 o'clock. Want me to cancel my afternoon meetings? I smiled at my daughter. She'd always been protective, always reading situations with the same clarity I tried to bring to them. No, sweetheart. Your father and I can handle this. I know you can. She kissed my cheek. But if you need backup, text me. I can be here in 20 minutes. After Lily left, Robert folded his newspaper and looked at me seriously. What do you think she wants? What she always wants. To take what isn't hers and convince me I owe it to her. He reached across the table and took my hand. You don't owe her anything, Helen. I know that. I've known it for years. But knowing it and enforcing it are different things. The hours until 3 o'clock crawled by. I cleaned the kitchen, organized my desk, did anything to keep my hands busy. Robert worked in his study, but I could hear him moving around more than usual. He was restless too. At exactly 3 o'clock, Sandra's car pulled into our driveway. I watched from the window as she emerged, dressed in expensive clothes that looked brand new. Greg followed, checking his phone, barely paying attention to where he was walking. Their son Kevin was with them, which surprised me. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I opened the door before they could knock. Helen! Sandra pushed past me into the house, her perfume overwhelming in the small entryway. This place looks exactly the same. You really should update it. Hello, Sandra. Greg. Kevin. Greg gave me a vague wave. Kevin looked around with barely concealed disdain, as if being in this house was beneath him. Robert appeared from his study. Sandra. Greg. Robert. Sandra's tone was clipped. She'd never liked my husband, mainly because he refused to indulge her dramatics. We moved to the living room. Sandra sat on the sofa like she owned it, Greg beside her, Kevin in the armchair with his legs sprawled out. Robert and I took the other sofa, sitting close together. So, Sandra began, her voice taking on that fake sweetness she used when she wanted something. I heard about your wonderful news. $650,000. I'm so happy for you. Thank you. Of course, it got me thinking. She leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. This compensation business is so arbitrary, isn't it? I mean, who decided which houses get bought out and which don't? I waited. I knew where this was going. The thing is, Helen, when we divided Mum and Dad's estate 15 years ago, things were different. We were both in different situations. You remember how it went. I remembered exactly how it went. Sandra had fought me tooth and nail for the larger house, claiming she needed more space for her family. She'd made such a scene that I'd finally given in just to keep the peace. She'd walked away triumphant, and I'd taken this smaller house without complaint. I remember, I said quietly. Well, looking back, I think maybe we made a mistake. You took the smaller house, and that was fine at the time. But now, with this compensation money, it seems unfair, doesn't it? Greg nodded along, though I suspected he had no idea what she was building up to. Kevin spoke up, his voice confident and entitled. What Mum's trying to say is that this house should have gone to us originally. You talked her into taking the other one. I felt Robert stiffen beside me, but I put my hand on his knee. Not yet. That's not how I remember it, Kevin. Your mother specifically chose the larger house. She said it was better for your family. Details. Sandra waved her hand dismissively. The point is, this little house is about to make you rich, and that doesn't seem right when we've been struggling. I looked at Greg. His suit was new, his watch was expensive. Kevin's outfit probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Struggling? Well, you know what I mean, relatively speaking. We have expenses. Kevin just started his position at Morrison and Blake. Do you know how competitive that firm is? We had to pull strings to get him in there. Kevin puffed up with pride. It's one of the most prestigious consulting firms in the country. They only take the best. How wonderful for you, I said, keeping my voice level. Sandra pressed on. The point is, Helen, I think we should switch houses. The words hung in the air. Robert's hand tightened on mine. Switch houses, I repeated. Yes, it's perfect. You take our house, we take this one. It's actually better for you in the long run. Our house is bigger, nicer, in a better neighborhood, and we'll take on the burden of dealing with the city, all the paperwork, the hassle of moving out when they tear it down. We're doing you a favor, really. I looked at her carefully. Her face was bright with false generosity, but her eyes were hard and calculating. Greg was nodding like this made perfect sense. Kevin was already looking around the room like he was measuring it for his furniture. Let me make sure I understand. You want me to give you this house, which is about to be compensated for $650,000. And in exchange, I would get your house. Exactly. See, you get it. And this is because you feel the original division of our parents' estate was unfair. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds bad. But yes, essentially. I think it's time we corrected that mistake. I stood up. They looked at me, surprised. I walked to the window and looked out at the street, at the old oak tree in the front yard that had been there since I was a child. This house held every memory of my parents, every corner familiar and loved. You know what, Sandra? You're right. Robert's sharp intake of breath was the only sound in the room. Sandra's face lit up. I am? Yes. I've been thinking about this for a long time. 15 years, actually. And you're absolutely right that an injustice was done when we divided the estate. I knew you'd see it my way. I turned back to face them. So yes, let's switch houses. I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers. We can make it official by the end of the month. Sandra jumped up and hugged me. I stood rigid in her embrace, smelling her expensive perfume, feeling her fake affection wash over me like poison. Oh, Helen, I knew you'd do the right thing. You've always been the generous one, the good sister. This is going to change everything for us. Greg shook Robert's hand, though Robert's expression was carefully neutral. Kevin was already on his phone, probably texting his friends about his family's good fortune. There is one condition, I said. Sandra pulled back. What condition? We make the switch now, this week. I want the deed transfer completed before the city finalizes anything. This week? That's so fast. You said you wanted to relieve me of the burden of dealing with the city. The sooner we transfer ownership, the sooner that burden is yours. Sandra glanced at Greg, then back at me. Well, I suppose that makes sense, but what's the rush? I just want it done cleanly. No delays, no complications. We transfer the properties, update all the paperwork with the city, and it's finished. Unless you're having second thoughts. No, no second thoughts. This is perfect, absolutely perfect. We shook hands on it. Sandra was practically vibrating with excitement. Greg looked pleased with himself. Kevin smirked like he'd won something. After they left, Robert closed the door and turned to me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Helen, what are you doing? What needed to be done 15 years ago? You're really going to give them this house, the compensation money? I smiled. Not exactly. He studied my face and slowly, understanding dawned. You know something they don't. I know several things they don't. Are you going to tell me? Soon. For now, let's start packing. The next week was a blur of activity. I contacted my lawyer, Elizabeth Chen, who'd handled our estate planning for years. When I explained what I wanted to do, she was quiet for a long moment. Helen, are you sure about this? Completely sure. You understand that once you transfer the deed, that house and any compensation attached to it will belong to Sandra and Greg. I understand perfectly. All right, if you're certain, I'll draw up the papers. The deed transfer happened on a Friday. We met at Elizabeth's office, everyone signing the necessary documents. Sandra couldn't stop smiling. Greg looked like he'd won the lottery. Kevin didn't bother to show up, sending a text that he was too busy at work. This is so exciting, Sandra said as she signed her name with a flourish. Helen, you won't regret this. Our house is so much better, you'll love it there. I signed my own documents calmly. I'm sure we will. By Monday, Robert and I had moved into Sandra's old house. It was indeed larger with more rooms and a bigger yard. Lily helped us unpack, and I could see the questions in her eyes, but she didn't ask them out loud. Mum, what's your plan? Patience, sweetheart. Sandra called me Tuesday morning. Helen, we're all moved in. This house is perfect. Well, it needs work, obviously, but once we get the compensation money, we'll buy something amazing. Greg's already looking at properties in Riverside Estates. That's wonderful, Sandra. I have to run. The city called and wants to meet with us about the timeline. So much paperwork, but it'll be worth it. I hung up and looked at Robert. It's starting. What's starting? Reality. The first crack appeared 2 weeks later. Sandra called me, her voice tight with stress. Helen, can you come over? I need to talk to you about something. What's wrong? Just come over, please. Robert drove us to Oak Street, to my old house that now belonged to my sister. When we arrived, Sandra opened the door looking haggard. Her hair wasn't done, her clothes were rumpled. Greg sat on the sofa looking shell-shocked. What happened? I asked, though I already knew. The city called. They completed their final assessment of the property. Helen, the compensation offer isn't $650,000. I waited. It's $320,000. They said there were structural issues they discovered in the additional surveys. Problems with the foundation, potential asbestos, outdated electrical. They're factoring in demolition costs. I sat down slowly. $320,000. Yes, can you believe it? It's barely half of what they told you. They told me the initial offer was $650. They never promised that was final. All offers are subject to additional assessment. Sandra's face went white. What? It says so in the paperwork from the city. Initial offer subject to final assessment and inspection. Didn't you read the documents? Greg leaned forward, his voice shaking. You knew. You knew the offer could change? I knew it was possible. That's why I waited to make any decisions. Sandra stood up, her voice rising. But you didn't tell me. You didn't warn me. You didn't ask. You were so certain you knew what you were doing. This is a disaster. We've already spent money. We bought new furniture for this place. We told everyone we were coming into money. Kevin's been spending like crazy because we promised to pay off his student loans. I looked around the room. New sofa, new television, new curtains. They'd been spending money they didn't have yet, banking on a windfall that had just been cut in half. "How much have you spent?" I asked quietly. Sandra's eyes filled with tears. "That's not the point. The point is you tricked me. You knew this could happen and you didn't say anything." "I didn't trick you, Sandra. You came to my house demanding I switch properties with you. You insisted it was fair, that you deserved this house and the compensation that came with it. I agreed. I gave you exactly what you asked for. But you knew. I suspected the initial offer might change. I suspected it was high. That's why I wasn't rushing to accept it. But you were so sure, so confident. Who was I to argue with you?" Greg stood up, his face red. "This is unbelievable. You manipulated us." Robert finally spoke, his voice cold. "No, you manipulated yourselves. You saw what you wanted to see, and you pushed Helen to give you what you thought was a prize. She didn't force you to do anything." Sandra grabbed my arm. "You have to fix this. We need to switch back. This was a mistake." I gently removed her hand from my arm. "We can't switch back. The deed transfer is final and recorded. This house is yours, Sandra. Legally, officially yours. And the house we're living in now is legally, officially ours. But this isn't fair." "Fair?" I heard my voice rise for the first time, felt 15 years of suppressed frustration finally breaking through. "You want to talk to me about fair? 15 years ago you bullied me into taking the smaller house. You made such a scene, caused so much drama, that I gave in just to keep the peace. You've spent the last 15 years calling my house tiny, making snide comments about how I got the bad end of the deal. And the moment you heard there was money involved, you came running to take it from me." "I didn't." "You did. You absolutely did. You've always done this, Sandra. Ever since we were kids. You take and take and take, and then you cry when things don't work out the way you planned. Well, not this time. This time you got exactly what you demanded, and if it's not what you hoped for, that's not my problem." Sandra's face crumpled. She looked at Greg, who looked away. She looked at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw her without the mask of confidence and entitlement. "I'm your sister," she said softly. "I know, and I love you. But love doesn't mean letting you walk all over me anymore. It doesn't mean sacrificing my family's security for your greed." We left them there in my old house, sitting among their expensive new furniture, facing the reality of their choices. In the car, Robert took my hand. "How did you know? About the assessment?" I didn't know for certain, but I read every word of the city's documentation. I talked to 3 different real estate lawyers. I researched what happened with other properties in similar situations. And I knew this house had problems. The foundation has been settling for years. There's asbestos in the attic insulation. The electrical is from the 1970s. The initial offer was based on location and lot size, but a thorough inspection would reveal all those issues. So you suspected the offer would drop? I suspected it was likely, but Sandra was so sure of herself, so convinced she was taking advantage of me. I realized I could either fight her and cause a family war, or I could give her what she wanted and let reality teach her the lesson she needed to learn. "What about your house? The one we're in now?" I smiled. "Sandra's old house, you mean? The one she was so proud of getting in the original estate division?" "Yes, that one." "Well, I had that assessed too. Professionally. Thoroughly. Did you know the city is planning to extend the light rail system?" "I heard something about it." "The proposed route runs through 3 neighbourhoods: Riverside, Oakmont, and the neighbourhood where we're living now." Robert's eyes widened. "You're joking." "I'm not. They're planning to buy out properties along the route within the next 2 years. And the compensation for properties in that corridor? The ones without structural issues, with solid foundations and updated systems? The estimates are running between 800,000 and 1.2 million. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he started laughing. Not a small chuckle, but a full, genuine laugh that made his whole body shake. "Helen Carter, you are absolutely devious. I prefer strategic." Does Sandra know? Not yet, but she will, eventually. We pulled into the driveway of our new house. It was larger than I was used to, but it felt good. Solid. Lily's car was already there and she met us at the door. Well, how did it go? Your aunt is unhappy. I imagine so. Mom, are you going to tell me what you did? I looked at my daughter, at her intelligent eyes and patient expression. She was so much like me, but better, stronger, more certain of herself from the start. I gave your aunt exactly what she demanded. And in doing so, I taught her a lesson about greed, manipulation, and the consequences of always trying to take what isn't yours. Lily smiled slowly. The assessment came back lower. Much lower. How much lower? About $330,000 lower, Lily whistled. And this house? The one we're in now? Well, that's an interesting story. I told her about the light rail extension, about the compensation estimates, about the thorough assessment I'd had done that showed this property was in excellent condition. When I finished, Lily hugged me. I'm so proud of you, Mom. I didn't do it for revenge. I know. You did it because you were tired of being pushed around, and because sometimes people need to learn that actions have consequences. That night, I stood in the kitchen of my new house, our house, and made dinner while Robert set the table. Lily was staying over working on her laptop at the dining room table. It felt comfortable. It felt like home already. My phone buzzed. A text from Sandra. I almost didn't read it, but curiosity won out. I can't believe you did this to me. To your own sister. After everything we've been through. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. She'd made her choices and now she was living with them. A week later, Kevin showed up at our door. His suit wasn't quite as crisp and he looked uncomfortable. Aunt Helen, can I talk to you? I let him in, offered him coffee. He sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Sandra had sat weeks ago demanding I give her my house. My mum's really upset. I imagine so. She thinks you tricked her. I gave her what she asked for. He looked down at his coffee. She's been crying a lot. Dad too, though he won't admit it. They spent a lot of money they didn't have. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you, though? He looked up, and his eyes were hard. Are you really sorry, or are you happy you got revenge? I considered his question carefully. Kevin, do you remember when you came to my house with your parents? Do you remember what you said to me? I don't know. A lot was said. You told me that my house should have been your mother's from the beginning, that I talked her into taking the other one. You looked at my home, the place where I raised your cousin, where I lived with your grandparents, and you treated it like it was worthless, like I was worthless. He had the grace to look away. I'm not happy your family is struggling. I'm not vindictive, Kevin, but I'm also not going to feel guilty for refusing to be manipulated anymore. Your mother has spent our entire lives taking from me, and I've let her because I wanted to keep the peace. But peace at the cost of my own dignity isn't peace, it's surrender. She's family. She is. And I love her. But love doesn't mean being a doormat. It doesn't mean sacrificing my family's security for hers, especially when she wouldn't do the same for me. Kevin stood up. She wants to know if you'll help them with some of the bills, since you're going to get so much more money eventually. No. Just like that? No. Just like that. Your mother made choices. She can live with them. He left without another word. I watched him drive away and felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness for what my relationship with Sandra had become. Relief that I'd finally stood up for myself. 2 months passed. The city finalized the compensation for Oak Street. Sandra and Greg received their check for $320,000. After taxes and the debts they'd racked up, they cleared about $200,000. It was a decent amount of money, but nothing like what they'd been planning for. I heard through family gossip that Kevin had to take out loans for his student debt after all, that Sandra and Greg were fighting constantly, that they regretted the switch but were too proud to admit it. I didn't reach out. I didn't gloat. I simply lived my life. 6 months after the house switch, the city made the official announcement about the light rail extension. The news ran maps showing the proposed route. Our neighbourhood was clearly marked. Sandra called me that night. I let it go to voicemail. Helen, I just saw the news about the light rail. Please tell me you didn't know. Please tell me this is just a coincidence. I deleted the message without responding. Lily came over for dinner that weekend, and we sat on the back porch of our house looking out at the yard that was slowly becoming familiar. Aunt Sandra called me, she said. What did she want? To ask me if you knew about the light rail before you agreed to switch houses. What did you tell her? I told her it didn't matter what you knew or didn't know. She's the one who demanded the switch. She's the one who was so sure she was getting the better deal. Her assumptions aren't your responsibility. I smiled at my daughter. You're wise beyond your years. I learned from the best. Robert joined us with a bottle of wine and 3 glasses. Are we celebrating? Just existing, I said. Is that worth celebrating? With you? Always. We sat in comfortable silence as the sun set. My phone buzzed one more time. Sandra again. I glanced at the message preview. We need to talk about this. You owe me an explanation. I turned the phone face down on the table. Not responding, Robert asked. There's nothing to explain. She got what she wanted. Sometimes what we want isn't what we need, and sometimes getting exactly what we demand is the worst possible outcome. Lily raised her glass. To getting what we want and having it turn out exactly right. We clinked glasses and drank as the sky turned purple and gold. In the distance I could hear the sound of the city, of life moving forward, of consequences catching up to choices. I thought about Sandra. About the 15 years I'd spent being the good sister, the accommodating one, the one who gave in to keep the peace. I thought about how that peace had cost me my dignity, my voice, my right to stand up for myself. No more. I'd given Sandra exactly what she demanded, and in doing so, I'd reclaimed something I'd lost years ago. My self-respect, my willingness to enforce boundaries, my understanding that love doesn't require sacrifice when that sacrifice comes from manipulation and greed. She'd wanted the house on Oak Street. She'd wanted what she thought was my good fortune, and I'd given it to her, every bit of it, along with every consequence that came with it. And now I sat in the better house, the one she'd fought so hard to claim 15 years ago, the one she'd been so proud of winning. The house that would soon be worth more than she could have imagined. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel cruel. I felt for the first time in 15 years, absolutely free. Robert put his arm around me. Lily leaned her head on my shoulder, and I realised that this, right here, was what mattered. Not the money, not the property, not winning some game against my sister. This, family, peace. The knowledge that I'd finally stopped letting myself be pushed around. Sandra would never understand. She'd always believe I'd tricked her, manipulated her, taken advantage of her. And maybe I had, in a way. But only by giving her exactly what she asked for. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just letting people have what they think they want and watching them discover the truth. The light rail project would take 2 years to finalise. The compensation would be substantial. We'd be able to retire comfortably, travel, help Lily with whatever she needed. But more than that, I'd taught my daughter a lesson worth more than any amount of money. That standing up for yourself isn't mean or selfish. That boundaries are necessary. That sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is let them face the consequences of their own choices. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Sandra. I picked it up and, without reading it, blocked her number. Mom, Lily said softly. It's time, I said. I've given her enough of my energy, enough of my peace. If she wants to talk to me, she can do it in person, like an adult. No more texts. No more demands. No more drama. Robert squeezed my shoulder. I'm proud of you. Don't be proud yet. The hard part is maintaining it. You will. You've already done the hardest part. You've proven to yourself that you can. As the stars came out, I thought about my parents, about the estate they'd left behind, about the division that had caused so much strife. I wondered what they'd think of all this, of how their 2 daughters had ended up. I thought they'd understand. I thought they'd be proud that I'd finally learned to stand up for myself, that I'd stopped being the peacekeeper at the cost of my own happiness. And I thought they'd approve of the house I now lived in, the home I was making with Robert and Lily, not because of its value or its future compensation, but because it was filled with people who respected each other, who didn't take advantage, who understood that love means building each other up, not tearing each other down for personal gain. The night grew cool and we went inside. Tomorrow Sandra might show up at my door. She might cry, plead, demand. But I'd already made my choice. I'd already drawn my line. I'd given her what she wanted. And I'd kept what I needed. My dignity, my strength, my family's security. And in the end, that was the only revenge I needed. Not her suffering, but my peace. Not her loss, but my gain. Not her regret, but my certainty that I'd finally done the right thing. For me, for Robert, for Lily, for the woman I'd always wanted to be but had been too afraid to become. That woman who said no, who set boundaries, who gave people exactly what they asked for and let them live with it. I was her now, and I wasn't going back.